Hey there, I'm Cody with Western Pacific Landscaping, and this is a project we recently completed, and I just wanted to show you around. So on the outside here, they actually had a rotting fence all the way through the exterior of the property here, and it's just fallen over, and there were literally like holes in the fence and all this stuff, so possibly some termite damage and all that. So we took all that out. We put in a stained redwood fence. It's with a semi-transparent stain. And then also a redwood framework. So redwood is usually very termite resistant as opposed to some other kinds of wood. Cedar is also a good wood we use quite often as well. But redwood is a little bit termite resistant. So in areas where they've already had possible termite problems, it's a good place to install that. And the stain on top of that is also good for that. Now, it's coming all the way through here. We'll show you how it's mounted on the back side. We have a little gate down here. You can come over here. We have a gate down here. This is actually just a little access gate. They're not actually going to use it very often, but you'll see on the inside there's stairs that lead down to here, and the property is up higher. Let's go look around this way. We did a little bit of work through here with a little drip irrigation. We took some of the cacti. They have a lot of cacti around the property that was existing, and a lot of big pots, and they're kind of sick of just having 50 pots lying around. And if you leave plants in pots for too long, sometimes the roots will take over the pot and actually break the pot, or it's really hard to take them out. So it's good to take them out at least at some point, most of the time, potted plants. So we took a lot of them and put them through here just for some little accents. We didn't invest too much out here, but we got some nice cacti up here for a little bit of an enhanced look. They're probably going to look at having an additional driveway section in here. So we actually didn't do anything in this section yet. They might actually rip this out, do a new retaining wall, and bring another driveway up through here, which I think is a pretty cool, pretty smart idea. But we did do pretty much everywhere else where you can softscape or hardscape on the property. So up through here, they had a bunch of cactus already. All the plants you see on the property were all already here, actually. We brought in 0 plants, so we moved around a lot of plants, transplanted a bunch, and we took a lot out of plants and put them into the ground. Most cacti and succulents are totally fine to grab and throw on the ground. You could throw it on the ground over there and it might just root and grow, So they're very useful. So you have your red yuccas. This was only we finished this job only a week or two ago, and you already have some flowers coming in on the cactus here. Very beautiful. That's just the cactus they had lying around. So let's put it in the front. So they all have a drip irrigation system run underneath the gravel, so you can't see any of it actually. It all has weed fabric, so a weed barrier beneath all the gravel that you see everywhere, except in a couple minor spots where it was hard to get to. But it's really good. Yeah, we actually had to lay it around all the cactus and stuff, so it was a lot of work, but it's worth it to at least suppress a lot of the weeds. Pretty much all of the mulch, wood chips, gravels, rocks that we install in larger areas, we put weed fabric in, or we at least recommend people do, just for less maintenance and whatnot. Along that side, you can see a little fire sticks hedge. There was a couple fire sticks lying around. I actually added them in there as well. And, just a bunch of cactus. Some of our favorite plants up here. This is one of my personal favorites here. As you could probably see in our planting, at our nursery video that I made. That's a blue glow agave. I love those. She had it sitting up here on a pot, but we just wanted to get rid of most of the pots. So great little accents here and there. And not super crowded, but, nicely spaced. Now we have this. So we had the dog ear fence running all the way through, nice and tight, 6 foot tall, all the way through. And then along the side, we have the gaps in here because they have little dogs. So they wanted the dogs to be able to see through the gaps and stuff if somebody was coming up, or just so the dogs could have fun running around the yard and stuff. So we have gaps in the smaller fence here, about 2.5 inch gaps all the way through. And then we have a little access gate here. This is what I would call just kind of your standard basic latch. It's just your average gate latch. Easy to open, easy access. Obviously not great for security, but we're not worried about security in this case. It's a short fence, So we have a little bit more of a cactus garden through here. That's their own windmill they brought in. I love that little accent. They've already done, in the past week or two, they've actually done a lot of their own work to enhance it a little bit more. They planted their veggies and stuff. So they've been doing a lot of work over the past week or two. Some people put this stuff off for a long time, but they're just getting in there, which is really great. So we have some more gravel, weed fabric in here. What you're standing on here is decomposed granite. This is a stabilized decomposed granite. Decomposed granite is basically, it's essentially kind of like a sand, like a very small rock. But stabilized means that it's a stabilizer is added to it, a powdered stabilizer most of the time. And you can buy it in bulk with the stabilizer already added. So you could buy big scoops of this stuff and bring it in. And when you water it and you compact it, it becomes a hard surface, right? You can see right here just how hard that is. You know, you're gonna have a little bit of a fine rock sitting on top of it at all times, as you can see here. But there's gonna be a little bit, but not much, you know. And if you ever get anything lifting up like this a little bit, all you gotta do is throw a little water on it and pat it down, because it is all stabilized, right? You can also, as an additional measure, I don't do this entirely too often, but as an additional measure, you can add a liquid stabilizer all over the top with a little hose, and that actually stabilizes it even harder. In a lot of cases, I don't like to use that because it's just not really as natural, and it makes it so the DG is even less permeable, meaning that you know, even less water can penetrate it. You want it to be at least a little bit permeable, so you don't get floods and it's just like concrete, you know. Especially in a spot like this where it's surrounded by walls and other hardscape, it should be able to drain at least a little bit. Even these little patches of rocks here probably help if it rains and whatnot, to absorb a little bit of the water out of this area. But we haven't had really many, you know, the previous, or the clients didn't really have any you know, issues with drainage or anything like that before. You do want to make sure that in most of the area, like patio or front yard areas, if it's already flat, right, which is a word I try to stray away from, but if it's completely flat already, you want to at least give it a little bit of a grade, a little bit of a different level to drain to different areas. We call that like a 2% grade is kind of an unnoticeable grade where you force the water to go where you want it to go, so it doesn't end up on your house foundation or behind your retaining walls and all that kind of stuff. So we did that in all the areas where we install anything. Now, yeah, again, all these plants were here. I actually personally went around, they had, you know, 50 pots here, and I threw away a bunch of plants that were rotting. There was only a few, but just a few of those. And then everything else, I actually just placed the pots where I wanted all the plants to go, and then my guys put them down. I got that approved, that layout approved by the owners. And then we moved a couple of minor things around, and then my guys put them in the ground at that point. It was a lot of fun. So a lot of these lower plants especially weren't here before. This was just dirt, and, you know, ugly gravel with weeds and stuff. So everything here is nice and fresh now. Coming through here, I brought like the kind of white and kind of the blue hue cactus that out in front of this cool little general store they have here. They're really like Old West type themed things, and so I wanted to accent that. You know, I would have just used DG everywhere so it looked like sand, like kind of like westerny, but I don't really like using DG in big, huge areas where there's slopes and there's lots of plants and all this kind of stuff. I usually like using it in kind of a little patio that's off to the side. First of all, because things can get stuck in your shoes and then you can drag them into the house. Luckily, with this situation, you know, you at least have your little pathway of concrete where you can wipe your shoes off before you get into the house. You don't want to scratch up your nice hardwood or something, especially if you've done a renovation or something like this. And then another reason is just for drainage in general, because with rock, it's obviously much more permeable than the DG is. DG is kind of just a hard surface, borderline concrete almost, you know. So it does drain a little bit, but having rocks everywhere, especially like against the house and all this stuff, it helps to spread the water out instead of it puddling or just getting into one little spot and all that, you know. So I like DG stuff for like that one patio off to the side, you know, not for a huge yard, lots of plants, all that, right? Have some of the nicer pots with the hanging plants around, you know. And then all the pots that I emptied that weren't plastic ones, there was a bunch of plastic pots we just threw away. They were done with those. But a lot of the terracotta pots that I emptied, they ended up reusing with another few of the cacti that they had. And they had a dry riverbed with those big river rocks in here in the front at first. We just took all those out because they didn't really go with the style. So she just reused those at the base of the pots, which look pretty cool, you know. And it actually matches the color of that wall there, so, you know, it works in here pretty well. And then, yeah, they have gnomes all over the place, little Star Trek gnomes. They're pretty hilarious. We like to, you know, help put little touches that are unique to the customer around. This flagstone patio was not like this at all when we came in. It was a little fire pit patio when we came in. Flagstone, just pretty separated out, pretty gnarly looking with, you know, weeds coming up through between and all that kind of stuff. It was at a completely different level. It was like 4 or 5 inches below this, so you had to kind of step up. Definitely like a tripping hazard coming from the flagstone up to the tile before. The tile was all existing as is. So we brought the level up just a little bit. Concrete base, concrete mortar between, and brought it up to that level, so it's a nice smooth transition. They can have a table right on the edge now, so it creates for much more usable space. This is just a little access point to septic or something like that, so they just cut that out. So at least it's natural and it's not just a little black piece of plastic there or something, you know. And then, yeah, all the furniture and stuff they got themselves. They just got this delivered very recently. They've been, like I said, they've been moving very quickly. It's really awesome to see customers creating on their own properties, you know. And yeah, all this furniture is new. That they already had that fireplace. It was sitting over there before, but now they brought it into the corner. Just all really good ideas. Up through this area, you know, there's kind of a bright light from the neighbor and stuff, and just for additional privacy, we brought the fence up at an angle like that. I think it looks really cool too, so that was a good idea actually from the customer on that one. So we're always open to the customer's ideas. And then, so now you can see on the inside here, let's go find a good bracket. Let's go over here. So this whole framework you see on the fence is all redwood. We come down here, these are a couple existing pavers they already had. So here we go. So this is all redwood. Now, a lot of the time for framework for fences, we actually like to use a pressure treated wood, which has some chemicals added to it to make it last longer than your average wood. Now, we usually like to use that if we're installing the wood into the ground with a concrete footing. However, in this case, we're mounting the top of a wall, so it's actually not a huge deal to just use your redwood, and then it's easier to stain and whatnot too. So this is redwood all the way through. So now you have your huge bracket guy here and some pretty gnarly bolts going all the way through. That's one of a few different ways to install on top of a wall. The most ideal way to install on top of a wall actually would be if we were building the wall, we would build the post down into the wall and fill it with concrete. So you get a much longer post, you could put it all the way to the bottom of the wall and just fill it with concrete. So this is the second best way to mount it on top. Obviously we couldn't have put it into the wall because it's already full of concrete as it's a retaining wall down there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is a semi-solid stain. It's not a full solid stain. Basically, as far as stains go, you know, a full solid stain it'll last almost as long as paint does, you know, so a very, very long time. A semi-solid will get you a little bit more of the natural colors of the wood coming through, right? So sometimes with people like redwood a lot of the time, so you can especially see on that side, right? See the different, you can see a little bit of the different color, but at least we get the nice brown that we chose. So a semi-transparent is pretty recommended quite often. If you go with like a full transparent or like a really bright yellow stain, it looks pretty, but you're gonna have to stain it more often. Sometimes once a year, sometimes every 2-3 years. With this kind of stuff, maybe every 2 to 3 years to start, then every 4 or 5 years after that. So it's much less stain work and stuff. If we install fences for people, we do very heavy discounts on restaining the fences that we put in and stuff. So most of the time we would actually like you to save money. So it's better to go with a semi-transparent unless you really, really want that style of the transparent, right? And then the last part coming down through here, we have a gorilla hair mulch. That'll just mix in with the pine needles over time and just mix in with the mulch. So this was kind of just a minor thing. I don't even think we did weed fabric under here. Yeah, so there was very minimal weeds, if any at all, when we first came through here. There was a bunch of the philodendron overgrowing and getting kind of crazy through here. That little plant over there is a philodendron. So now we just left a couple of them. They're gonna regrow in there, and just kind of a negative space area. The mulch looks cool and it'll repress the weeds and stuff. And this is actually a redwood. It's a gorilla hair mulch, so this is a redwood too. So we're matching the woods. So now we come down here, you know, just for privacy purposes, we put in this section, so if you're standing out there, you don't just see directly above the gate. I thought this was really cool. They brought it back to the fence here. And then we have our kind of standard gate here. This is kind of your normal way of having that basic latch that I showed you earlier, of having that from the inside so you don't have to reach over. You can just pull that string, boom, pops you right out, right? So it's connected to this here. So that's kind of your very standard latch type thing. I like using those because it's just easy maintenance and stuff like that. If you get into handles and doorknobs and deadbolts and stuff like that, it's not a bad thing and it looks nice, but there can be a little bit of misalignment over time as the wood expands, gets weathered and warps and all this kind of stuff, you know. Redwood and cedar don't warp so much. If you do a pine is a very warpy type of board. It's a little cheaper, usually not worth it. I don't think I've ever used pine in 5 years on anything, actually. So, you know, redwood, cedar, kind of your standards. There are upgrades from there into Ipe and Mangaris and other kinds of kind of more exotic hardwoods from the center of a tree. But as far as being pretty cost effective and not going over the top, and you know, redwood, cedar is kind of the way to go. And yeah, that's pretty much it, you know. So very low water usage going on here. A couple drip valves, couple drip lines to all the plants, cactus, succulents. I mean, over time you're not even going to actually have to water these almost at all, you know, maybe once a month. Most of the plants on the property, even in the hot summer, most of these plants you barely have to touch them. Most of the time you're going to want to water plants extremely early in the morning. That's kind of the best way to do it. Or if you can't do that, then late at night. Of course, this is all, we put this all on an automatic watering timer. So it's all automatic very early in the morning. And you know, we have our redwood, long lasting, termite resistant. You put on the stain, that's going to last quite a while. Framework is also redwood, going to last quite a while, you know, 20 years, something like that, 20 plus, if you keep it in very good shape. You know, it is a dog ear wood, so it's a rough wood. But that actually, even a smooth redwood is actually going to last just about the same amount of time. If not, this might actually last a little bit more. And then we also have, you know, we have our weed fabric, we have our grading, we have our gravels for drainage, we have our DG, we have all our transplanted plants. No plants are brought in. I had a lot of fun ripping all those plants out and shoving them in the ground, you know. So, fun project, and we're looking forward to more of these.